Hello, thanks for tuning in. This is take 2 of this video, so here we go. Personality! What is it? Why did take 1 of this video seem to lack it? And why do some people have personality disorders? And what are those anyway? Today I'm here to discuss personality disorders, in case that wasn't obvious from what I just said. These are some of the most poorly understood and stigmatized mental illnesses, which is answering the question of what they are, but we will get into more information. Don't worry. That's what this entire video is about after all. This video is meant to answer some questions that you may have and also to address some myths about personality disorders regarding what they are and aren't. Just a point of note. This video and subsequent videos will be discussing personality disorders in regards to how they are laid out in the DSM-V or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition, as opposed to the World Health Organization's ICD, which I don't remember what that stands for, in the 11th edition. So the ICD-10 was very similar to the DSM-5, however the ICD-11 is now out, and that talks about personality disorders in a completely different way, completely new way, and I will get to that in a future video. However, for this video, and for videos discussing personality disorders in general, we will be talking about DSM-V criteria. So with that, let's get back to the video. You may ask yourself, what are personality disorders? Are they all the same? Do they make people dangerous? Why am I asking all these questions to myself instead of to this video? We'll answer all those questions and more. But first, we need to understand what a personality is. Personality is defined as the totality of qualities and traits as of character and behavior that are peculiar to a specific individual. This would include stuff like your idiosyncrasies, your disposition, how you carry yourself, and your patterns of behavior. There are 2 similar definitions of personality disorder, which we will look at. The first one is that a personality disorder is a class of mental disorders characterized by rigid patterns of thought and behavior. The second definition states that personality disorder is an inflexible and maladaptive pattern of behavior. You can see from these 2 definitions that they both recognize patterns of behavior, and the first one also mentions patterns of thought and the fact that it's a mental illness, which is important. You may also notice that the definition of personality uses the word totality, while the definitions of personality disorder don't use that word and only focus on patterns of behavior within the personality, patterns of thought and behavior. Patterns like houndstooth or chevron. But in reality, these patterns are more like unhealthy coping mechanisms and trouble with people's boundaries. Not nearly as fun as chevron and houndstooth, although houndstooth isn't that fun in the first place, but maybe that's just me. It can therefore be noted that a personality disorder does not encompass a person's entire personality, but parts within the whole. It is when these parts affect your quality of life on a consistent basis that it can be classified as a disorder. Let's discuss some common misconceptions about personality disorders so we can set the record straight. Myth number 1. All personality disorders are the same. The fact of the matter is, the DSM-V distinguishes between 10 different personality disorders, all with their own diagnostic criteria. You may have heard the terms borderline personality disorder, or antisocial personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder. These are all distinct disorders from each other. Again, this is in the DSM-V because the ICD-11 has kind of morphed all personality disorders into the one definition of personality disorder with like traits that you can kind of check off and that you have. Not everyone will have all the criteria to meet them. They'll each kind of have their own grouping of criteria, and not all personality disorders manifest the same in everybody. So everybody has kind of their own flavor, but it's still within the realm of the disorder, of that specific disorder, I should say. At this point, you may be asking yourself, what causes a personality disorder? You also may be asking yourself, why am I asking myself instead of asking the video? We'll answer that question. The first one. I don't know why you're asking yourself. But first, let's look at how a psychiatrist might diagnose a personality disorder. Diagnostic criteria, like I mentioned before, are specific to each disorder, but the psychiatrist would look at things like your patterns in your life, your thoughts, behaviors, how you act in certain situations, your fears and concerns, and your actions and reactions. Myth number 2. People with personality disorders are dangerous. The fact of the matter is, people with personality disorders are no more dangerous than people without them. Only 3 to 5% of violent crimes can actually be attributed to somebody with severe mental illness. People with personality disorders, and mental illness in general, are actually 10 times more likely to be the victim of violent crime than the perpetrator. That's food for thought, I suppose. Myth 3. It is easy to tell if somebody has a personality disorder. The fact of the matter is, it is not easy to tell. In fact, it is impossible to tell if somebody has a personality disorder simply by looking at them. People with mental illness, even severe mental illness, live among us, and you'd never know that they have mental illness. Myth number 4. Personality disorders can't be treated. The fact of the matter is, personality disorders can successfully be treated, although not cured. Treatment for personality disorders often includes therapy. This can look like psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. People living with personality disorders can understand and cope with their illness better if they learn the triggers and situations that cause them distress, and learn how to deal with difficult situations that might have seemed impossible in the past. Quality of life can be improved. And that's awesome! Yay for quality of life! Myth number 5. Personality disorders are just character flaws. The fact of the matter is, personality disorders are very serious mental illnesses. Honestly, I thought we went over this already. Personality disorders are mental disorders. But you probably knew that if you were paying attention. Earlier, we asked what causes a personality disorder. The answer to that isn't a simple one, because there isn't one easy answer to that question. The causes of personality disorders is actually a point of contention among experts. In the past, people with personality disorders were seen as lazy, or flawed in some way, or simply evil. But today we know better. Today we know that they are mental illnesses that can and have been treated. And you know better, because you're still watching the video. Are you still watching the video? According to the American Psychological Association, there are many factors that can contribute to developing a personality disorder. These include genetic inheritance, biological processes, learning development, cultural experiences, traumatic situations, and childhood relationships. Research is being done into genetic links to personality disorders, such as genes linked to aggression, anxiety, and fear. Research has been done that has found that childhood trauma can influence whether or not a person develops a personality disorder. Additionally, it's been found that verbal abuse can contribute to people developing narcissistic, borderline, obsessive-compulsive, or paranoid personality disorder. There is some research to suggest that highly reactive babies are more likely to develop a personality disorder. Highly reactive means that they are very sensitive to light, noise, and texture. However, this link is still not clearly determined. Apparently, even having just one childhood relationship that's positive can help reduce your chance of developing a personality disorder. Now that we've cleared up some misconceptions, let's talk about symptoms that many personality disorders share, so that you know some of the signs, in case you're curious. Number 1, issues with self-esteem. People with borderline personality disorder, for example, may have a rocky self-image, while people with narcissistic personality disorder believe that they're better than other people, or smarter than other people. Number 2, inconsistent values. A person may be inconsistent in how they treat people. For example, somebody with antisocial personality disorder may be polite at work but abusive at home. Number 3, problems keeping close relationships. Strong personality traits come with the territory of having a personality disorder. It's also possible that you can have a misunderstanding between yourself and another person very easily. A person with a personality disorder may project motivations onto other people that they simply don't have. Number 4, difficulty with empathy. A person may come across as insensitive if they have trouble relating to others, or if they simply don't want to relate to others. Some people lie in order to deflect blame away from their behavior. Number 5, trouble with boundaries. A person may not be able to understand boundaries easily, or even overstep boundaries on purpose. Number 6, problematic parenting styles. Much of the time, a child of a parent with a personality disorder is often affected by that parent's disorder. Some parents may be irresponsible, too involved in their children's lives, or the opposite, not involved at all in their children's lives. Number 7, difficulty regulating emotions. With a personality disorder, it's often difficult to regulate emotion. A person may have a strong, immediate reaction to something that isn't going their way, with strong frustration or rage. Number 8, problems with stress. A person may cope with stress in unhealthy ways, such as somebody with borderline personality disorder self-harming in order to cope with stressful life events. Number 9, low self-awareness. Some people with personality disorders don't realize they have a problem. They may even deny the issue when loved ones try to get them to get help. Number 10, difficulty at work. A person may be aggressive in the workplace or have a difficult time working in a team environment. They may also have difficult time holding down a job for being so shy or withdrawn. I have to give you a word of caution here. It may seem from the list that I just mentioned that it is easy to determine if you or someone you know has a personality disorder. That's simply not the case. These are just vague, general symptoms that you may or may not have if you have a personality disorder. They're just kind of an overarching idea that usually contributes to personality disorders. Not every time, but sometimes. Only a mental health professional, like a psychiatrist or a psychologist, is able to diagnose somebody with a personality disorder. Self-diagnosis is not possible. In order to get a diagnosis, your patterns of thought and behavior have to differ significantly from cultural norms, enough to be impairing. Plus, these patterns must permeate your whole life, like work and interpersonal relationships, and not just one of those things. To put it another way, personality disorders are not situational. Of the following 4 things, at least 2 will be affected: cognitions, or thoughts, mood, interpersonal relationships, and impulse control. Before we recap what we've learned, I have a message for those who have recently been diagnosed with a personality disorder. My message comes from the heart and my experience of being diagnosed with a personality disorder, as well as talking to somebody I know who's also been diagnosed, who helped me feel better. At first, your diagnosis may seem like a hard pill to swallow because you feel dysfunctional. You think back and you recognize patterns of behaviors and thoughts and attitudes that you didn't know were part of your disorder. But you must realize, it is just a label. It helps doctors understand something about you. It's just a label for patterns of thoughts and behaviors. That's it. It's not you. You're not the problem. Yes, it's part of you, but it just means that you have to be aware of some things in order to deal with them in certain ways so that you can feel better. You are not dysfunctional. One thing you should not do is do a deep dive of research into your disorder, because you may fall into the trap of altering yourself and your behaviors in order to fit your disorder criteria more perfectly. You must realize that you will not fit all the criteria, and that's okay. And you don't need to tell anybody your diagnosis, except maybe those closest to you, because they'd appreciate knowing, even if they don't know what to say. Even if you told people, most of them wouldn't likely know what it means anyway. Remember, you are not broken. There's nothing to fix, just some things to cope with. It isn't the be-all end-all of you as a person. It isn't even your entire personality. You're still you. Nothing changes. You don't get the disorder from the diagnosis. You've already had it. It's just a label to point out a few things. It might just explain some things, but that's it. And remember, there is healing, there is hope. You're going to be okay. Okay, let's recap. A personality disorder is when patterns of thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are maladaptive and impair social functioning, mood, and impulse control. Personality disorders are not character flaws, but are serious mental illnesses which can be treated and quality of life can be improved. They are not all the same. There are 10 recognized personality disorders, and while they may have a few overlapping symptoms here and there are distinguished criteria that each one has for you to get a diagnosis with that disorder. Personality disorders do not make somebody more dangerous than the general population, and people with mental illness are actually more likely to be victims of violent crime. You cannot tell if somebody has a personality disorder simply by looking at them. If you suspect you or someone you know may be suffering from a personality disorder, get help, seek professional help, or behoove them to seek professional help for themselves. Only a mental health professional can diagnose you. And no, we never did figure out why you were asking yourself all those questions instead of asking me. We also figured out that houndstooth just isn't a fun pattern. It can't just be me who thinks that, right? In my next few videos, we will be going over the differences between the DSM-V and the ICD-11 when it comes to personality disorder diagnosis and explanation and description. We will also be delving into the 10 personality disorders as laid out by the DSM-V, which are split up into 3 clusters. We will go over each cluster individually, with each disorder individually and their criteria. The clusters are listed A, B, and C. Cluster A is the odd cluster, which includes schizoid, schizotypal, and paranoid personality disorder. Cluster B is the dramatic cluster, and includes the personality disorders borderline, narcissistic, antisocial, and histrionic. Cluster C is the anxious cluster, and it includes avoidant, obsessive-compulsive, and dependent personality disorder. We will look at each in more depth. And with that, I just want to say, I appreciate you. All 41 of you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you when I see you.